The lie is printed right there on the wall. You're not topside. Not yet. You're deep inside some half-collapsed office block, catching your breath while ARC scanners whine outside. The corridor is quiet in that way only dead places can be. The plaster's flaking, old wiring hanging. Your flashlight beam walks along the wall and hits it. A billboard. Not graffiti. Not a warning. A relic. On the left, the words J Cosma Ventures. On the right, a shining wheel-shaped station drifting in the dark. Ring lit up like a halo, and underneath, almost lost under grime and cracks, you can just make out the tagline. Humanity, our most valuable shipment yet, into orbit, 2082. Shipment. Not our people, not our citizens. A shipment. Cargo. In that one sentence you can feel the whole lie humming behind the world of Ark Raiders. Because we grew up in Speranza being told a simple story. The world died, the machines came, we went underground, and we raided to the surface to survive. But this poster, this corporate confession from 2082, hints at a different version of events. One where humanity wasn't saved, it was sorted, where some part of us was shipped off-world as a valuable cargo, and the rest of us were left to rot under the Rust Belt. And that's what this video is about. Ark Raiders. It was all a lie. Raiders, today I want to tell you a story. Not just about why we're in Speranza, but about what this game might really be about, and what the endgame could mean for you as a raider. We're going to talk about dates, about the Exodus project, about that Cosma poster and the prestige system. I want you to hold one question in your head all the way through. The ones who never go topside, never get to leave. So if you enjoy this kind of deep dive, emotional lore content for Ark Raiders, hit like early. It really helps the video reach more people. And if you want more theory videos, breakdowns, and story pieces like this, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next one. So alright, let's rewind the timeline. The official lore on Ark Raiders doesn't start with Ark, it starts with us. Long before the Cosma poster was hung, long before Speranza, Earth was already in trouble. Generations before the game begins, a global environmental collapse wipes out most of human society. Whole nations disappear under storms, famine, rising seas. What's left of humanity claws its way into scattered enclaves and makeshift cities, trying to restart civilization on the bones of the old world. By the time our story officially opens, the year is 2180. That's the date the game and the official site throw at you. In the year 2180, survival is resistance. For a moment, it almost looks like we've stabilised. We've survived the climate crash, rebuilt pockets of life inside ruined cities. People are living in the Rust Belt. That massive stretch of ruined, semi-habitable land, trading, arguing, building fragile communities. But then the sky starts to fall. Crude machines begin dropping out of orbit. The first wave of Ark. They hit the Rust Belt hard. For a decade humans fight them, improvise tactics, blow themselves to pieces just to hold the line. Eventually we push the first wave back, but it doesn't last. Within a few years, Ark returns, stronger, nastier, more relentless. And this time what's left of humanity is forced underground into places like Speranza, clawing tunnels into the bones of old cities to survive. That's the official story. But that story skips something. Because that Cosmo poster on the wall is dated 2082. Almost 100 years before 2180. A clean, confident promise from a company that clearly expects the sun matter a century later. Humanity, our most valuable shipment yet, into orbit 2082. So ask yourself, what was happening in 2082 that made someone turn humanity into a shipment? Let's stay with that billboard for a second. You see it, the logos in the corners. Jiangsu Ramagna, JKV, are old corporate names few people in Speranza even remember. The station on the poster isn't a fantasy, it's a product, something they actually built. And that tagline keeps echoing, our most valuable shipment yet. To ship something, you have to own it. That line isn't the voice of a government begging people to evacuate. It's the voice of a logistics company bragging that they just landed the biggest contract in history. It's the voice of someone who looks at the species and sees cargo. Now layer that over everything else we know. We know Asira Spaceport, the map we raid now, is described in the lore as a place where Exodus shuttles, the vessels of hope and desperation, once roared into the heavens, leaving a broken Earth behind. We know community compiled lore talks about an event literally called the Exodus, a mass departure of the wealthy and powerful to off-world colonies, leaving most of humanity on the ground to deal with Ark and the fallout. We know Buried City has a space travel building, corporate offices covered in space travel branding, where quests send us into barricaded rooms that look like they were abandoned in a hurry. Put those pieces together and the picture gets ugly. By 2082, companies like J Cosmo Ventures are already sending humanity into orbit. At some later point, the Exodus shuttles leaves Asira, roaring into the sky with whoever qualifies as valuable cargo. And by 2180, the only people we see are crowded into Speranza, fighting the Ark for scraps. The simple version? Part of humanity left, the rest of us buried into the earth. And all the speeches about togetherness, about saving humanity, start to sound a lot like marketing. So here's one possible timeline. Some of this is confirmed, and some of it is theory, but I'll make it clear which one is which. So confirmed, long before the present day, environmental collapse wrecks civilization. Generations pass, the world staggers back into something like order. And then we go to speculation, but somewhat supported by the poster. In 2082, companies like J Cosmo Ventures are already running serious off-world logistics, stations, shuttles, enough infrastructure that they can run an ad calling humanity a shipment. Maybe they're building orbitable habitats. Maybe they're building corporate sanctuaries. Either way, they're moving people off Earth long before Ark shows up in the sky. And confirmed, sometime after civilization returns, Ark arrives. Machines fall from orbit. The first wave hits the Rust Belt. Humans fight a 10-year war and barely hold them back. Then Ark comes back even harder and drives survivors underground into Speranza. And let's talk about Exodus and the speculation during that chaos. The environmental collapse, the early Ark attacks, the slow realisation that the surface is becoming a permanent war zone. The people with the money and the connections cash in on their Cosmo tickets. The shuttles at Asira Spaceport become the Exodus. Not a noble rescue, but an evacuation of the few. They call it saving humanity on the posters, but the manifest tells a different story. Executives, investors, senior engineers, key military and political figures, Families whose names match the ones on the lobby plaques. Everybody else? Told to shelter in bunkers. Told there'll be more ships. Told we're all in this together. Well, we know how that ends. Speranza is what happens to people who were never on the shipment list. And let's talk about the lie we live. Fast forward to the present. You're a raider. You wake up in a cramped room in Speranza. The air recyclers hum. Traders argue over prices in the next tunnel. And somewhere up above, Ark machines patrol the ruins that you're about to climb into. The story you've been told your whole life is simple. The world ended. The machines came. We hid underground. And raiders go topside so everyone can eat. But the walls don't agree with that story. The walls say, Exodus shuttles once roared into the heavens. The graffiti says, the rich escaped off-world and left us here. And that's where the title of this video comes from. Ark Raiders. It was all a lie. Not a lie about Ark. The machines are very real. The lie about who humanity was when those ships took off. The lie is that we're all in this together, when the reality is that someone did the math and decided some of us were worth loading and some of us were worth leaving. We inherited that lie. We grew up under it. And now, the game quietly asks us, what are you going to do with it? And let's talk about you, specifically, as a raider. Most people in Speranza never see the sky. They live and die in the tunnels. They barter. They scrape. They raise kids who will inherit the same dim corridors and recycled air. For them, the surface is something between a myth and a nightmare. Only a few choose to go topside. And in gameplay terms, we do it for loot, progression, the dopamine hit of a good extract. In universe though, going topside is more than just a job. It's a test, a filter. The ones who never go topside never get to leave. That's the line that's been eating at me. Because as the game expands, we're seeing more and more narrative hints that some raiders don't stay in Speranza forever. Officially, Embark talks about something called the Expedition Project. A late game system where, once the Rust Belt has given all it can, some raiders choose to set out beyond its borders. As of now, the law says those journeys are always a one-way trip. Mechanically, that's tied to the game's prestige system. You reset your progress in exchange for unique rewards, a fresh climb, that zen of starting over, stronger. But what if we look at the prestige through the same lens as that Cosmo poster? What if prestige isn't just a number on your profile? What if it's Exodus 2.0? Think about how prestige works. You grind, you learn the maps, you master the gear, you push your account to the point where for most people, there's nothing left to do. And then the game offers you a choice. Give it up, reset your progress, start over in exchange for something you can't get any other way. This could be cosmetics, status, access, a star next to your name, and maybe in future seasons, even new places to explore that aren't available to people who stayed in their first life. Now put that next to the Expedition Project lore. Once the Rust Belt has given all it can offer, some raiders choose to set out beyond the borders of what they know. As of now, this has always been a one-way trip. Tell me that doesn't sound like the beginnings of a second Exodus. Back in 2082, humanity was a shipment. Jade Cosmo Ventures sent into orbit. Only certain people got to be on that manifest. In 2180, we might be looking at a quieter version of the same thing. Who gets invited onto those journeys beyond the Rust Belt? Who gets to join the expedition? The people who've proven themselves topside. The ones who risked everything again and again. The ones who prestige. The ones who never go topside, never get to leave. Suddenly the grind has teeth. You're not just chasing guns and blueprints. You're chasing a ticket, not one the game will ever literally put in your inventory. I'm talking in lore terms, in the story. Your repeated runs, your reputation with traders, your willingness to reset and climb again could be what marks you as valuable cargo in this second age of Exodus. And that raises the uncomfortable question the game quietly lines up but never asks directly. Are you okay with becoming the thing you hate? Are you okay with becoming the raider who earns a way out, while the people who never leave Speranza are left to carry on without you? So what is Ark Raiders about? On the surface, it's an extraction shooter about cool guns, giant robots, and sweaty extractions. But underneath, there's a different story running in parallel. A world that died once to climate and again to machines. A class of people who treated saving humanity like a logistics project. A city full of survivors living under the lie that everyone had the same chance. And a new generation of raiders who risk the surface for loot. And maybe, slowly, for something more. So when you walk past that J Cosma Ventures posters now, I don't want you to see it just as background art. I want you to see a contract. A deal that was made long before you were born. Humanity will survive, just not all of it. And then I want you to look at the Expedition Project, at the prestige system, at the way the game talks about raiders who go further than anyone else and never come back. And ask yourself, is Ark Raiders quietly setting up a future where we become the next shipment? Will there be a season where those tunnels lead not just to the next map, but to something bigger? An orbital station, a shipyard, a frontier beyond Earth? Will our prestiges become the law justification for why this raider left and this new raider took their place? And most importantly, when that moment comes, will you take the offer? Will you leave Speranza behind like Cosma left Earth? Or will you just stay and try to build something better out of the ruins? So it's your turn, Raiders. That's my theory. Ark Raiders isn't just about fighting Ark. It's about living with the fallout of a decision made in 2082, when someone called humanity a shipment and fired the first rockets. It's about asking whether we're repeating that pattern every time we chase progression, prestige, and a way out. But I want to know what you think. Do you buy the idea that the prestige system and expedition project are a lore-friendly way of saying some raiders get to leave the Rust Belt? Do you think we'll ever get to see the colonies that took in Cosma's valuable shipment? And when you look at that poster, humanity, our most valuable shipment yet, into orbit 2082. Do you feel like one of the people on those manifests, or the ones left staring up from the ground? Drop your thoughts, your own timelines, and your wildest theories down in the comments. I'll be reading through them and replying. I love this kind of content and discussions. So if this video got you thinking differently about Ark Raiders, hit like so more raiders see it, and subscribe if you want more dives, theory pieces, and story-driven content. If you want to talk about all of this live whilst we're actually raiding topside, come hang out on the Twitch. The link is in the description. We can squad up, stare at that Cosma poster together, and ask the same question every time we go topside. Are we going up there to survive? Or are we auditioning for the next Exodus? Until then, keep your eyes on the sky, your feet in the rust, and remember, the ones who never go topside never get to leave.